I want to go to Gene Sperling right now, top economic advisor to President Biden. Gene, very good to see you.
Thank you.
You know, this back and forth on whether it's a recession or not. When Bill Clinton made it to the White House in '92, of course, you guys were arguing that we were in a recession. Indeed, we were. But the Bush administration was arguing at the time we were climbing out of it, and statistics would later bear them out. Aren't you kind of doing the same thing?
I think all the president and all any of us are doing is trying to offer a balanced view of the economy. First of all, every family is the world's greatest expert on how they're doing. And we know that millions of American families have not escaped the higher prices that have come from this global inflation the world's going through now. And that's a squeeze at the gas pump. It's a squeeze at the grocery line. We understand that, and we're not negating that. On the other hand, I don't think there is any way to look at the last 6 months and say this is what a recession looks like. The 2.7 million jobs that were created in the first 6 months of this year is, other than last year, the most jobs created in the first 6 months of the year in the history of our country. That doesn't mean everything was great about the economy, but as the chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, said yesterday, there's no way that a 6-month period with 3.6% unemployment and 2.7 million jobs created is consistent with what you think of, anyone thinks of, as a major downturn and recessionary period.
But the fact of the matter is, I could cite many, many more statistics that show things are recessionary. Factory production. I could talk about what's been going on with retail sales. I could talk about mortgage demand, the worst it's been in 20 years. I could talk about existing home sales going down, new home sales going down.
You know what else you could also refer to?
Why, when you say that we're not in a recession, whatever hope you get from that, and Americans hear that and remember some of the stuff that I'm talking about, they think you're just out of touch, Gene. That you almost make it sound like you let them eat cake. I mean, cake's double the price.
Except I didn't. Except we aren't, and I didn't. I started this by saying every family is the greatest expert of their situation, that people feel squeezed or even a gut punch.
No, they feel it's a recession, Gene. They feel it's a recession.
You're going to let when they go to the gas pump, they do feel that. That makes them unhappy, and I don't know what words they want to use to describe it, but we understand people feel the gut punch of
Gene,
higher
just acknowledge
prices.
Their pain. If you don't want to call recession, fine, but acknowledge their pain.
Here's the thing. You've just said acknowledge their pain 4 times. I literally started my discussion here by saying that people felt squeezed and a gut punch for higher prices. So I guess no matter how many times I do that, you're not going to acknowledge I said that.
You just mentioned the jobs backdrop, Gene, and you're right to mention the jobs.
That's not true.
It is a very strong jobs market.
That's not true.
But I mentioned 4 or 5 different things that look bad for them. So you're not calling it a recession. I get it, Gene. What did I
say? I said you want to give.
What would you call what we're in now?
I would say that after the record red-hot economy we had in 2021, you're seeing, understandably, a cooling as the Federal Reserve is raising rates. And the goal is for us to be able to make a transition to a more stable growth with lower prices. And we are not denying any of the things that are affecting people in terms of higher prices. But if you're creating a more balanced picture of the economy so that you're not feeding more negativity about the overall economy than there is, then you have to recognize the 2.7 million jobs, 3.6% unemployment, the fact that spending on services actually contributed to growth today, and that major banks, when they did their earning reports, like J.P. Morgan, like Citigroup, said they saw no signs of a recession, and that, in fact, J.P. Morgan said they saw spending up 10% higher than next year. Does that mean everything's rosy? Of course not. But we should have a balanced view. And I think if you have a balanced view, you do see a picture of much more resilience than you're suggesting. And you do not see the kind of major contraction or layoffs that we have ever been consistent in our country with a recession. There has never, ever, ever in the history of our country been a period where we've grown by over 2 million jobs in 6 months.
Right?
And somebody labeled that. And somebody labeled that a recession.
But the layoffs are starting. And you're quite right. We're at a lot higher point than we were, so we would have a lot further to go to suffer greatly. But I do find it interesting, Gene, no offense, that when Bill Clinton was running in 1992 and the argument was it's the economy's stupid, we're in a recession, it's getting worse, when in fact we learned in retrospect that at the time it wasn't getting worse, we were coming out of it. And I think you kind of knew that at the time. I know how politics is played on both sides. Trust me, I have no axe to grind with either party.
I have to think back 30 years, but I think what we were saying was that jobs were weak.
You're doing the opposite of what you were doing back then.
No, we are presenting a balanced view, and we are recognizing, we understand there is 9.6% inflation in the 38 countries of the OECD. We've not escaped it, and we understand the fact that
you're not bragging
even though
about
people
9.1% in this country, are you? By comparison, we're doing better because they're at 9.6 and we're 9.
No.
You're not saying that.
No, that's what you're saying. I'm not saying that.
You just said you're comparing it to 9.6%, right?
I'm just explaining a factual number of what the OECD says. And what I was going to say
but 9.1% you acknowledge is awful, right?
What I was going to say was that the fact that the fact it's a global phenomenon is of little comfort to an American going to the gas pump or to the grocery line who feels squeezed, and we totally understand that. And we're not negating that. We're very happy. These are the reasons why we are doing the things we have, why we have $1 million a day strategic petroleum reserve release, which we think has contributed to the 75 cents that gas prices it's comes down. It's why today we are talking about passing a prescription drug cap and lower prices on prescription drugs, to lower prices on health premiums, to lower prices on energy. All of these things are in the Inflation Reduction Act. So the fact that we understand that is why we've made, and the president said, that lowering prices and helping out the pocketbook of working families is his #1 priority.
But
I think to offer a balanced
Reduction
view,
Act, and you know, I just don't understand. This is a huge spending initiative, and you're calling it the Inflation Reduction Act. Normally, government spending is what got us this whole ball rolling here, and now you come up with a stamp like that on something that's going to be more government spending. You hope to exact some savings, but that's not the record on these things.
Well, let's look at the overall plan. I mean, you have to remember, we have had disagreements even with some of our friends.
Absolutely.
But those friends, like Joe Manchin and Larry Summers, all agree this is not only paid for, but reduces the deficit by at least $300 billion. They agree that it's anti-inflationary, and they agree it's going to lower prescription drug prices, lower energy prices, and lower health premiums for 13 million. And that when you look at it as a whole, it is an anti-inflationary bill, and I think that there is wide support for that assessment, even among people who we've had disagreements about inflation with in the past.
You are very good at economics and finance.
Yes.
In fact, wickedly good. And there is no way you can think that more government spending is going to cure inflation. I just don't think you believe that.
Giving Medicare the ability to negotiate lower prices to save $288 billion for Medicare, so you're lower government spending, and you're lowering what seniors pay for prescription drugs, and you're capping it at $2,000. Yes, I believe that that is going to be anti-inflationary and lower prices. And just asking the most well-off Americans to pay their fair share, to close the loopholes.
By the way,
so that
what
you
is
can
fair
take
share,
money.
Gene? I always hear that. What is fair share?
Well,
for
I'll
a rich
tell you what this
person?
example is.
I know about the corporations and those that are not paying the money, but for an individual, wealthy individual, what is fair share to you? It's around 37% now. You want to bring it up, I guess, 39.6%. What is fair share? At what level are they paying taxes that Gene Sperling and the White House could say, finally, you're paying your fair share? What is it?
Well, the one that's relevant today to the bill we're talking about is companies where, and all this bill says is that if you're reporting over $1 billion of profit to your shareholders and to the market, you should be paying at least 15% on that.
Got
15%.
That. I'll take that off. Then what about wealthy individuals? What about wealthy individuals then? And do you think in this environment, no matter who you tax, companies or otherwise, this is the environment to raise taxes on anyone?
Well, what you're doing here, first of all, we're not raising rates, so that's not relevant to the discussion we're having. And when you talk about the climate investment, and we haven't talked about the CHIPS bill that's passed, you're seeing one of the best days I've ever seen for creating incentives to help people locate, innovate and create jobs in the United States, increase the supply of semiconductors through the chip bill, and through this Inflation Reduction Act, increase the amount of clean energy manufacturing production done here in the United States. I think this will be a boom for the most important bottom line of all, which is the location and creation of manufacturing and high value-added jobs in the United States.
Well, we shall see. It's the jury's still out. We'll see, but we hope springs eternal if that gets to be the case, Gene. Finally, let me ask you about the Federal Reserve. I know you guys don't like to judge what it's doing or not doing, but obviously it's been raising rates at an aggressive pace. We went from 0 back in March to about 2.5% right now. They expect to keep raising rates aggressively. Many argue by the end of the year we could be at 4 or 5%, still higher going into next year. What do you think of that?
Well, Neil, as you said, we have such respect for the notion of an independent Federal Reserve that we've had a policy, and it's the same policy we had under President Clinton and President Obama, right, of not commenting on the monetary decision. So when I'm out of government someday, I will come back and tell you all my views.
Well, you know
the
rationale with the Federal Reserve,
respecting their independence.
Their goal is to
equal. Their
goal is to raise rates to whatever the inflation rate is, to get it down and force it down. Now, if they were to do that in this environment, they would have to raise rates to at least 9%. Do you fear that?
I don't. I'm not sure I agree with that assessment that you just said. But again, this is just a policy of the White House, which we think is a good policy, not commenting.
I understand it, but normally in the past, that's the Fed's goal, to match their rate, their interest rate, with whatever the inflation rate is. You're quite right. Now, they could keep raising rates that they don't have to go that high, that inflation will come down as a result. But what if we did?
I will leave that to your discussion with so many other experts who are not working for the White House right now and don't have to worry, as we should, about respecting the independence of, thank God, what we have in the United States, an independent Federal Reserve that is able to make these decisions based on their assessment of the economy.
All right. We'll follow closely. Gene Sperling, very good having you, top advisor to President Biden.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.